last night, I came across this video. I believe one of my followers tagged me in it, or they linked it to me, and it was a very frustrating video. It's a guy's commentary about the situation where a 13-year-old boy was shot by police officers. 13-year-old with autism after the mom had called them. Now, before we get into this, I want to be very explicitly clear for everybody who's watching this live, as well as anybody who watches this when I put it on YouTube. Okay, this is a very classic example, I believe, of somebody simply expressing an opinion that is ignorant. This isn't a person who's speaking out of any level of malice. I just think it's very ignorant. I don't want this person to be canceled in any capacity. At best, I'd like this person to see my commentary on it and hopefully change their mind. But I very much disagree with them. I think it was a very ignorant statement. But again, this isn't about canceling individuals. This is about educating individuals. And I'm very disgusted with cancel culture. Again, there's no negative intent or malice behind his words. They're just, frankly, stupid words. So let's watch the core video that got me to research this topic, and let's get into this.
I just came across a story in Utah. A mom called the police because her autistic son, who is a child, I don't know how old he is. He's like in elementary school, though. He's like
I don't think it's elementary school. He's 13 years old. I don't know how old you are in elementary school. I guess I could just quickly look that up. Yeah, it's 6 to 8. No. Yeah, right. So he's in middle school.
a small child. He is autistic. He was having an episode, so she called for a mental wellness check. Of course, the cops show up and shoot the kid. I just don't know what else we need to do to get it through people's brains that the police are not your friends. That they're just going to show up and shoot you. If you call for a...
So it's just it's just kind of like a dumb point. Like, hey guys, don't call the police because they're bad. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to educate them. Right? Or rather, we're supposed to be having a conversation about police officers not abusing their power.
mental wellness or any wellness checkup, you're just going to get shot. Yes, I blame the police. Yes, I blame the failures of society and the people in charge. But I also blame that mother.
So right there, that's where I had a problem with his words. That he blames the mother for calling the police, which is a generally trusted service, to help with the situation. It wasn't really a mental wellness check. We're going to get into the story right after this video. But you blame the mother for calling, like, the police officers are generally reputable, right? You would say they're certainly flawed, and this is absolutely a case of that. This is a barbarically pathetic, disgusting instance of that. But to blame the mother for her child getting shot, because why? Because you hate the police? Come on.
Let me be clear. My heart goes out to you. I can't imagine the suffering that you're going through right now. But
no, you can't. And then you're like, I can't imagine the suffering you're going through right now, but it's kind of your fault. That's his argument, man. That's a really bad argument.
You're going to tell me that with everything that has been going on, hundreds of thousands of videos, you did...
Hundreds of thousands? What are you talking about?
Didn't see this coming? How did I...
Very exaggeratory. So to be clear, I'm disgusted with what he said, but again, this isn't about harassing or bullying this guy. This is about re-educating him because of what he said was very ignorant. Now, there's a slew of other videos that he has made about this particular topic, which we're going to go into after we go through the actual article, because, you know, we're going to actually get the educated facts on it. So, right here, a 13-year-old boy with autism disorder shot by Salt Lake City police, right? A police officer in Salt Lake City shot a 13-year-old boy with autism spectrum disorder on Friday after his mother called 911 seeking help for her son, who was experiencing a mental health crisis. Golda Barden told CBS affiliate KUTV that she called police to request that a crisis intervention team transport her son, Lyndon Cameron, to a hospital for treatment as he was having a mental breakdown. Okay, so very clear. Her son was having a mental breakdown. She expressed to them that he had autism disorder, full everything, and she wanted him to be transferred to a particular mental health hospital. That's not. That doesn't seem like. That That doesn't seem too out of, that seems like a very logical, easy thing. Barton said that Lyndon has Asperger's syndrome. Yeah, so autism spectrum disorder is what that's called now. She had just returned from work for the first time in nearly a year and said that her son suffers from separation anxiety. So it seems like she just went back to work from quarantine. He was very used to her being home, so he had a bit of a mental breakdown, which I'm assuming was pretty rough considering the situation. To the point where she had to call the police, I'm assuming it was an insane mental breakdown for sure. Barton reportedly told officers that her son was unarmed, describing him as a kid trying to get attention he doesn't know how to regulate. Okay, again, he's a kid with autism. She's expressed that. 13-year-old boy. She said she was told to stay put when officers arrived at her house. Within minutes, Barton said she heard voices yelling, "Get down on the ground," followed by several gunshots. I honestly don't know what type of a fucking police officer decided to do that. Like, why would you do that? So the police came, they went in the house, they engaged him. The police came, they knew this young man had autism. And they still tried to go about the situation as if he was like a normal, 25-year-old man? A 13-year-old boy with autism. And they said, "Get on the ground," and shot him. In a press briefing, Salt Lake City Police Sergeant Keith Horrick said officers were called to the scene shortly after 10 p.m. to respond to a violent psych issue involving a juvenile who had made threats to some folks with a weapon. Now, I want you to understand the wording here is a violent psych issue makes it seem worse than I would actually assume it is. Made threats to folks with a weapon. Who are the folks? Horrick said there was no indication that the subject had a weapon. So, like, right there, you just completely invalidated what you said. But stressed that the investigation was in its early stages. How much investigating do you need to do to find out if a 13-year-old kid with autism had a weapon? It's not like this is like a lot of like back off, it's like, oh well, we heard he had a weapon, we couldn't find it. We're gonna find it. We're gonna look for it. We don't know if it's there though. Without using his names, Horrick said that Lyndon, who is white, fled from the address on foot, and that one police officer fired at him during a short foot pursuit. Officers provided medical aid until Cameron was transferred to the hospital. He's reported to be in serious condition. So what this tells me, this is even more disgusting, that the kid ran away, and they shot at him while he was running away? Is that what that suggests? A 13-year-old boy with autism ran away, so the police officer shot him. Let that one sink in a little bit. That's according to the information that the police are giving. According to an online fundraising page created by a family friend, Lyndon has several injuries to his shoulders, ankles, intestines, and bladder. He shot a 13-year-old boy with autism in the stomach? For what? Running away or hitting you? 13-year-old boy. The page says that while the long-term effects of those injuries are still unknown, it is likely that his recovery will be long and require multiple kinds of treatment. For what? Barton told reporters that her first thought was that her son was dead and that officers did not immediately reassure her that he was not. Okay, so to me that seems like the officers thought they shot and killed the boy, which would be reinforced by the fact that he's in serious condition. So, fantastic for this. So far, we have a young mother who just went back to work to support her 13-year-old autistic child. She comes home from work. He's acting up because, intensely acting up. I'm not going to diminish it. 13-year-old boy acting up because he has separation issues. She just went back to work after the coronavirus. And then the police officers came. She called them to deal with the situation and help her, and then they just shot the kid. Like, that's if this wasn't a real situation, this would be an actual joke and a meme. It's just ridiculous. She slammed law enforcement handling of the incident and questioned why they didn't use less aggressive tools like tasers or rubber bullets. For sure, like tasers and rubber bullets to me would also still seem like way out of hand for this situation. But like their first thought was a gun with a regular gun. He's a small child. Why don't you just tackle him? Barton said. You're big police officers with massive amounts of resources. Come on, give me a break. That sounds pretty accurate. This 13-year-old boy. They shot this is ridiculous. Neurodiverse Utah, a grassroots organization that promotes autism acceptance and self-advocacy, said in a statement that people are less likely to be able to think rationally and respond promptly when they are experiencing a mental health crisis. That's the autistic kid. But police officers don't have any excuse for that, whatever. This is what they experience every day. They're supposed to be ready for something like this. And this isn't very nuanced. Again, this is a 13-year-old boy with autism. This isn't like a 25-year-old man with some kind of a mental health issue where they could be afraid for their life. A 13-year-old boy that they could literally just tackle on the floor. Police were called because help was needed, but instead more harm was done when officers from the SLPD, I think the Salt Lake City Police Department, expected a 13-year-old experiencing a mental health episode to act calmer and collected than adult trained officers. Yeah. Like, listen, I understand people might be at defense of these cops saying, yeah, but, you know, this kid has a mental health issue. That's blah, blah, blah. Any rational adult human being, when you should have to be that to be a police officer, should go, okay, 13-year-old with autism, I'm going to have to, like, deal with this differently. According to KUTV, the police department issued a statement on Tuesday saying an investigation by law enforcement and the district attorney's office is ongoing, and the city civilian review board and police department's internal affairs division will also conduct parallel separate investigation. I don't fucking care. We shouldn't need to investigate this situation. This is ridiculous. I understand that you need to investigate it, but this never should have happened. Why is this kid shot? Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall said in the statement to the Salt Lake Tribune that while full details of the incident are yet to be released, she is thankful the teenager survived and that no one else was injured. Shut the fuck up. I can't believe that you said that. Like, you're going to be thankful? Your police officer shot a kid. Police say that they do not anticipate having any further updates until police body cam footage is released 10 business days after the incident. Friday's shooting comes in a summer marked by protests against racial injustice and police brutality following numerous high-profile incidents of officers shooting and killing black people, among them George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Jacob Blake. I would like to be very expressive about this last part here. So, specifically the George Floyd situation, right? The George Floyd scenario, in my opinion, was very indicative of police brutality. I don't necessarily support the narrative that it was racially motivated. I think that it was certainly indicative of some level of police brutality. I mean, like, the police officer was just on his neck for 8 minutes. It's ridiculous. And there was, like, a media storm. And you have a situation like this where, again, like, this is, in my opinion, this is another situation that's indicative of police brutality. Nobody really cares. Because it's an autistic kid, so nobody really gives a shit. Okay? Now, here's my thing. I want you guys to know. Here's my thing, right? People could say, like, oh, well, Papa, they're not supposed to be trained to deal with situations like this. First and foremost, she called the police for a very specific matter of her autistic kid having an issue. So whoever decided to send the police rather than some kind of a mental health expert, that's whatever their protocol is. I don't care. Secondly, it's common sense that when you have a 13-year-old with autism, that you don't shoot him in the stomach. Who cares if he hit you? It's a kid. Punch him in the face. No, don't do that. But, like, you push him on the floor. Literally, it's a kid with autism. You have a bunch of grown adult men doing, like, that have to deal with that, and you're going to shoot a kid. Why? Why are you going to shoot the kid? Did you fear? What's the argument? Did the cop fear for his life? I don't understand. I don't really understand, and there's so many people who will defend it and say, oh, you know, this cop was afraid for his life. I want you guys to understand something, right? People are always saying that being a police officer is a very dangerous job, and it is. It's a dangerous job. But, like, truck drivers have a higher death rate than police officers. Right? Police officers are on the list of, like, the top 25 most dangerous jobs at, like, number 18. They have an average salary of $60,000 a year with full benefits. As a police officer, that at most, in the most intense states, in the most well-trained states of New York, require, like, a bachelor's degree in literally anything. And not just anything. A bachelor's degree. You have direct support personnel, DSPs. Those are people who work directly with people with autism inside of homes, who have to experience this type of behavior on a daily basis, who get paid minimum wage to deal with it in a better way. And you're telling me that we can't get a cop, a middle-aged cop, who gets paid 5 times the amount of money that a DSP gets. We can't get them to, like, properly deal with somebody with a mental health disorder? Again, bachelor's degree at most. Most states, I don't think it's anything. Maybe an associate's degree and whatever. It doesn't even have to be anything. You're milking social workers for $60,000 a year to get a master's degree to make $40,000 or $50,000 a year to start. But we can't get police officers any more training to get what, $35,000, $40,000 to start with a top pay of whatever the median salary of $60,000. It doesn't make sense. Honestly, why don't we make police officers go to college for psychology or something, a bachelor's degree in something? This is the biggest problem. Police officers are having a problem with the way that they respond to their protocol, as well as the way literal levels of actual empathy. Tell police officers to go to college for something real, not just criminal justice. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like, what is criminal justice degree really doing? I don't really know the specifics, but again, the issue is when it comes to empathy and the ability to deal with people with issues, mental health issues, and we're gonna what? Go to school for nothing. Maybe liberal arts, maybe nothing. Mostly nothing. Training is subpar. 6 months of training, complete bullshit. Are you kidding me? And like, I want to be very clear. Most people who go to become police officers, they're not doing it to do the right thing or the wrong thing. Most people who are police officers are doing it because it's a solid, stable job. And they're like, yeah, if I become a police officer, I'm set for life. That's why most people go to become police officers. They go to become a police officer because it's financially stable. And we have no requirements for it. There's laundry lists of people who want to be police officers in every state. They're on a backlog list. The demand for a police officer is drastically fucking high. Rather, the demand to be one, the desire to be a police officer, is so drastically high that based on the capitalist system, there's no reason why we're not increasing the requirements to be a police officer. If we made you have to get a master's degree to be a police officer, there'd still be a laundry list of people wanting to be a police officer because it's a high-paying job with fantastic benefits. And to be honest with you, it's relatively low maintenance, right? I respect police officers, but most of the time they're hanging out, right? Driving around the car, driving around. And at the very least, we can't say, hey, you know what we need? We need independent training facilities. Have it in a fucking accreditation. Tell people that they have to go to some kind of a college for a specific thing before they become a police officer. Something. But we don't care. Everything's a free ride as a cop. Why not? Why not say, hey, go get a bachelor's degree in psychology before you become a police officer? Or, hey, you know what, let's create a 1-year training program that you pay out of your pocket, right? You pay out of your pocket to go and get and just get a certification to be a police officer before you become one. Like I said, there's massive desire to be one. There's no reason why we can't increase the stakes. It's not like there's a shortage of cops in any capacity. It's insane, man. There's no reason for a grown man to shoot a 13-year-old autistic boy when it's your literal job to deal with dangerous situations. And that's what gets me. It's your job to deal with dangerous situations. That's what you get paid for, specifically, is to deal with dangerous situations. That's your whole entire career field. And you get to say, and I know they didn't say it in this situation, but I can't imagine any other reason why they would shoot somebody unless the argument was, oh, I was in fear for my life. That's your job. Is to be afraid for your life. I'm not trying to be a dick, but you get paid an average of $60,000 a year, which is above the national average, with full medical coverage for you and your family. And you can't think critically and engage properly in a situation? On top of the fact, it's just insane. And I would guarantee you that if these individuals did engage properly, that these issues where they're in danger are drastically lowered. I'm just saying. And listen, I don't hate police officers. I respect the institution of police, but we should all be outraged that this is happening. Like, if you're somebody who defends police officers, you should be fucking outraged. Because, like, you have to sit here and, like, how do you defend this? And things like this are happening too much. This is one time is too much, but you're seeing situations like this happening too much. And it's just frustrating, and it's annoying, it's aggravating, and it's pathetic. So I want to go through. We don't need to
just
go through
came across this.
I want to go through this individual's a couple more of his posts if I can find this. Is this true?
So this morning I checked the mail.
All right, what the hell is this?
There are so many Gordon Ramsay.
I don't know what.
Someone left a comment on one of my videos.
What is this? So we're going to go through...
I just came across a...
Right, so I'm going to go through a couple more of his videos. Again, I want to reiterate, this isn't about harassing or canceling this guy. It's about re-education. So, you know, if you see this, keep that in mind, okay? Cancel culture doesn't allow for education. And go through the rest of what this guy said. It's very ignorant, but...
This is a good and fair criticism, so I'd like to acknowledge it.
Okay, it says, so, okay, what the fuck? You've reached the other end of crazy, good sir. You never victim blame. She cried for help. I'm assuming we're speaking about the woman who called the police.
Defend my position, but I also might be wrong. Watching the mom talk about what happened was just absolutely heartbreaking for me, and I started crying when she had to cover her ears like while she was talking to the reporter. It's absolutely heartbreaking. The reason why I say that the mom is not absent of blame in this is because we have witnessed day after day for months now that the police don't care.
What? This is like a I really just don't understand how you could double down the idea that it's the mom's fault for calling the police. Like, what was she supposed to do? Let the kid hurt himself?
Walking around and beating people with bats, pepper spraying them out of moving vehicles.
You're equating, like, riots that are much more weird, complex, or not even complex, but, like, much more intense, to a situation where the cops were called with full context. I don't care. I don't get it.
Just abducting people, running them over with cars. Every health and wellness check, the person ends up dead. And even after all of this, she still didn't get it. And now look at the consequences of what has happened. This is a good...
Dude, I don't understand, man. I really don't understand how you could blame the mom for this. Like, that's gross. I don't understand how the fuck you could do that.
100%, you are correct. The first part, how should she have known? That's literally what's happening in this country right now. I don't know where you're living under a rock with your privilege, but we're currently facing...
How did you just call somebody privileged for pointing out that the mom's not at fault?
Fascist police state. If you call 911, if the police show up, they are not going to do their job. They're not here to protect and serve. They're not...
Yes, they are. They're here to protect and serve. To an extent, you guys would consider this somewhat of an outlier. But it's happening so often that it needs to be talked about. And for you to put accountability on the mom, you're not holding the police accountable. That's weak bullshit. That's an easy walk-off. That's pathetic.
Not here to fulfill the role that they're supposed to. They're just here to bully and abuse.
No, they're here to protect us, and we're paying them to do that. So by blaming the mom for trying to do the right thing, you're just completely taking accountability off police officers, and you're wasting your own tax dollars. Maybe you don't even pay taxes. I don't know.
Shoot whoever they feel like. If you call the cops for a wellness checkup, someone's gonna get shot. They had access to a weapon because there was a knife.
You're a moron. I'm not trying to be rude, but dude, are you kidding me?
In the house. It's everywhere, and that's why it's so shocking to me that she didn't know that she didn't consider that. And of course, like, she did everything right. She did everything right, but it's still her fault. That's his argument. Apply this logic to sexual assault. Anything wrong. But she, like, if it were me, that's my regret, is that this kid got shot. Look, she'd follow the...
No, you know, guys, you were at a party and, like, you know, you got assaulted. But, like, hey, why were you at the party in the first place? You know, you just have to expect men to assault you. We shouldn't hold them accountable. It's your fault for getting assaulted. That's his argument, just so you guys know. That's his argument.
Rules, and he got shot. 100.
How do you make such a really terrible take and then kind of like just like move on to talk about Chef Gordon Ramsay?
You are right.
I understand your point, but you were still victim blaming. You claim to hold the police totally at fault, but to still say the mom did something wrong.
I will revise kind of my position on this.
Let's see what his revision is.
It's mostly, I'm just so confused. I am dumbfounded as to how people could still think that calling 911 will not result in somebody getting shot.
He's doing it again.
I'm completely incapable of
He's made a shitty point, and he's continuing to double and triple down on it. Like, what?
understanding how anyone in the United States right now can't see that. And so it is so overwhelmingly confusing to me that people still, they say like, oh, I have a problem, I better call 911 because it's going to help. It's not going to help. Someone's going to end up getting hurt or worse. And it is so ever present in our faces. It has been for so long now. It is all over the place. It's like the biggest thing in the country, even with coronavirus. So I guess that's what I mean is I don't.
You said that 7 times already. Like you're not changing the context. You're not providing any additional information. You're just doubling and tripling down on a stupid thing that you said.
I don't get it.
Because you're a fucking moron.
You are right. And so I will revise kind of my position on this. I guess...
You didn't revise anything.
So don't worry, you don't...
Defund the police, not dismantle. I don't know. I'm no political science major. I work with glass. Just scared for what's next.
Need a degree in political science to figure out that when police are ignoring the law and just murdering people in the streets for no reason, that they can't be allowed to do that. You say...
Wow, what a great take. So what you're saying is we shouldn't allow police officers to shoot people in the street, so what we need to do is blame the person who got shot. That's good logic.
You're scared of what comes next, but what do we have right now? Like, if you're a person of color, you're just gonna, like, live with the risk of getting murdered by law enforcement. And, like, yeah, that's it. That's the end of story, period. There is nothing else in that conversation. If you're a person of color, you could just be murdered by police for...
We're talking about a 13-year-old autistic boy.
Literally any reason.
It's a white autistic boy. This is a police brutality issue. Stop bringing race into it.
If you're wondering what comes next, there are many activists on the front lines of this conversation who have detailed plans about how to move forward. So I would recommend just doing a quick Google search and trying to read up on some of those. People have different ideas, but at the end of the day, most of it falls into the same lines. This is a big conversation, and we're going to all have to have it together as a society, but it's not something we can't.
You're being so incredibly vague, and like you're riding. Like, let's start. This started with, hey, a 13-year-old autistic kid was shot by police. It's the mom's fault. We really need to hold police more accountable. How the fuck did you construct that conversation? Police needs to have drastically better training.
So don't.
This is ridiculous. I asked how she could have known the cops were going to show up because she wanted advice, not cops.
I understand. So there are a few points.
I don't know that that's necessarily true. She called the police for them to help.
I'd like to make. The first is that the number that she dialed is 911. Now, Is that the number she is supposed to call? Yes, it is. She requested the correct thing.
So far, she's done everything right according to your own logic. How is it her fault?
With the correct team. However, that team is just police officers. There's literally no additional training. And
that's the problem.
This is the...
And not once have you actually like mentioned that.
Big reality of the US. And it's the conversation we're having. It's the problem that we're currently dealing with. 25 times a week, there's a new story about how some wellness check turned into cops.
I don't even think that's true. Like, show that.
Up and
You're just making up numbers. It's like the second time. He's just like, there's hundreds of thousands of issues of police brutality every year. What?
Somebody. If you live
hundreds of thousands of stories.
States, you need to understand that dialing 911 is most likely going to result in somebody getting shot. Again, she did nothing wrong, but I don't know how much more clear it has to be.
She didn't do anything wrong, but it's her fault. This is an asshole.
Here we get to your... So, your point is valid.
After blaming the results of 911 call on the person that called 911 is not acceptable to me. It feels like victim blaming.
Defensible. I see it. I understand it. I just view it in a different way. The way... This will be the last video I make on this one. If it were me in that situation,
if it was you,
I would have known that dialing 911 was the same thing as risking my child's life.
Just want you to understand what he just said. He said if it was him, if he was a young mother, 30, 40-year-old mother who just got out of quarantine and had to go back to work and came home to her son having a mental breakdown due to the fact that he has autism spectrum disorder and issues of, you know, whatever. He has separation anxiety. That he would have just known what to do better. He would have just handled it better. That's your argument? That you know... Do you know how hard it is to have a child with, like, autism spectrum disorder? Like, you... In that sentence, you literally just diminished the shit out of that mom. Imagine getting home from a long day of work to having your kid have a mental breakdown and you don't know what to do. This guy does. He knows what to do. He's infinite. He knows exactly what he needs to do.
And I would not have been comfortable with risking my child's life by doing that.
You're an
I
asshole,
would have known
man.
that based on reality and everything that is in our faces that has been happening day in and day out this year and every year, but especially right now.
It's pathetic. Is this like the face of activism? I don't understand. I don't want to say it is, because that's not fair to activists, but you're a moron.
We also have to take a look at it's in the moment. So we might not have 100% control of our actions. We might be reactionary in the moment when something happens.
Are you defending the cops for shooting him now? That you don't know what your... What? We don't know what your actions are going to be in the moment. Are you defending the police? I don't think you're intending to, but you're kind of giving them a justifier.
But I know that calling 911 for a wellness check is probably going to result in somebody getting hurt. So I cannot stop being confused as to why people continue to do it.
I don't understand. So you get the point. This kid, listen, again, this kid needs some re-education. This guy's a moron.
Papa got to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.